Hello, I'm Trey and welcome to another of my colouring tutorials. In this tutorial I'll be working on a basket of berries, and I have done a couple of other tutorials on this design, just parts of it, the skin and the hair, so I'll put a link in the description to find those. I'm still using Prismacolor, so I'll be using browns and the reds that I've already used on the other berries. I'll be also working on the colour, the highlights coming from the left, so hopefully we'll see how that works. I use reds mostly for the berries and a dark purple for the darker shading, but I also used white as a highlight. It's not something I do very often, but it's kind of nice when you're doing fruit and berries and stuff like that. It makes it more interesting. Well, I feel it does. So still trying to work on this left side for the light. So for these berries I made them darker, the highlight darker, and for this side I made it lighter. So I'm going to put in the lightest red first, and I'm going to try to work out where my highlights are. Now underneath these sections here there would be shadow off the basket, so I'm going to work on the other bits first. And I'll put a little circle for a highlight, and that's a part of it I'll be leaving white. Doesn't have to be exact, it's just to give a little bit of an idea of light source. And when I get to these sections, there'll probably be a little bit of shadow from the basket, so I'll put it in, but when I come to do the blending I'll probably go over that section. And now I've put in where I feel my highlight will be, I'm just going to colour in the rest of the berry. I think these might be rose hips, I'm not 100% sure, but I think they are. So I'm going to colour in the rest of the berry in the lightest red, just light pressure. And then I'm going to use the next darkest red I'm using, and I'm going to start to darken in parts of the berries away from the light. So say for this one, I'll just do it first for this one, and I'm darkening in the edge away from the light source, from a little white spot. Now this section here, this is what makes me think that there might be a little bit rose hips. It's dark, it's almost like rose hips have the stalk here, and they have a black section grown at the other end. So I'm darkening in those sections, and I'll be using the purple as well to darken in those. But for now, I'm just going to darken in the edge away and over those black spots, away from my light source. And now I'm going to use the purple to do the darker sections. Now these black spot areas, I'm going to darken those in first, so that I know I've done those. It's the same as what I did with the other ones as well. I darkened in those sections. And now I'm going to darken in along the edge of where I went earlier with the medium red, overlapping slightly but not completely. So I'm making like a dark rounded edge, and if it's in a corner, I'm doing the corners. So what I've actually done is use the outline of the other berries that's butt up to the, to each other as the edge for darkening in. And I'm not quite sure if that's, technically right, but it works quite nicely. Now I need to repeat all those. I'm going to go backwards with the medium red and go over what I've just done with the darkest, over that, but not covering the lightest red. So I'm not covering all of the lightest red, I'm leaving a section still for the lightest red. And I'll finish some of those off camera, I don't need to watch all of that. So now when I go in with my lightest red, I'm overlapping that medium red. I'm going over where the previous light red was, but still leaving that white spot for my highlight. So all the berries will be built up that way. I mean, there'll be a few layers and then I'll do a blend. So I'll do those few layers for the berries and then come back to this when I do the blend. I put 2 more layers down of each colour, and now I'm going to try and do a little blend, a light blend, and I'll use a blender pencil because it's such a small area. Now these berries here near the edge of the basket will have a little bit more shadow, so I'm going to blend those first, and I'm going to be going from the darkest edge right across into the white section just lightly, just touching into it, so it'll cover up part of that. And it dulls down that highlight. Now as I move away from that edge, I want to keep the highlight, so I'm going to do the blending as before, going from the darkest edge but not going into that highlight, because I want to keep it brighter. That's a light blend, and I'm going to now go over all of the berries apart from the highlight with my lightest red, just to lighten up the berries a little bit more. And that's because I'm trying to make these lighter like I did this side, because I'll be in the light. The light will be coming down and catching them. Still using very light pressure so I can build up my layers if I need to. So even though I've lost some of my highlight on this side, I'm still leaving it slightly lighter at the edge. Now I'm going to use my darkest colour for these berries, which is the purple. I'm just doing the darker edge again, including those black bits. And then just over that edge again, I'll use the medium red. Just to make it more red than purple. And then I'll do another light blend. Again, working from the darkest, leaving that highlight. Now that's how I would do the berries. It's up to you how many more layers you want to put down on that. You can put a few more layers down to darken in and enrichen the colour. But that's how I would do the berries for in the basket. Now I'm going to look at this basket. Now there'll be lighter areas and darker areas. There are some lines in here to give an idea of where those sections are. Again, I'm going to be trying to work out the light source as it's coming from the top left. So first I'm going to use my lightest brown. This basket will be in browns, like a beigey brown, a medium brown, a darker brown. So my highlights, I'm going to use a beigey brown. Now the sections here overlapping, it's almost like a weave effect. I'll make all of those beige. And I'll probably be adjusting these as I go along, but for now I'll make all of those beige. Sounds like a yellowy colour. This one. Now this section here, this strap that comes across in this weave basket effect, I'm going to put the beige in the middle and the top edge there, because that'll be in the light. Again, I'll just put it in the middle. It'll probably be adjusted, because as it moves away from the light, it will be darker. Now these sections here, the top of the basket, I want to make the middles of those sections slightly lighter. And again, I'm just going to use the beige as it is now. And the same with this side. I'll be adjusting this for the light source. Just to give me an idea, because I'm trying to create the effect of the basket as well. Now in these sections here, most of that will be shadowed, but again I want to try and make the effect of the weave. So I'm going to put the highlights in the middle of each of these sections that are bent round because I'm trying to create a beveled effect as well. And now I'll adjust for the light sources. I would go into those sections with the medium brown. And there's also the same effect with the basket weave the other way. So again, the middle sections in the beige. It's just a rough idea. I'll be adjusting this as I go along. Now I'm going to use a medium brown. I'm going to be working from the edges. I'll do this section first, these overlapping sections, and there's some lines in which will help me with that. So I'm going up from the edges. And I'm going to darken in this edge because it's bent over. Just underneath there. I'll do the same for all of those, same thing. This is all light pressure, so I can adjust it easier. Now that there will have less beige, so I'm going to darken in the other side of the edges on that overlapping section. I'll do this side next, and I'm going to put darker sections on both sides of the overlap on this one. Extend it just a little bit on that side because that's more in the light. I'm going to extend that side, this side, and I'll go underneath as it bends over and make that larger. And you see how it's starting to bend in, gives it a beveled effect, so the darker sections makes it look like it's bending away. I'll do the same now for this strap. I'm just going to do the corners and leave a lighter section in the middle to create that beveled effect. Now as it moves away, you'll see how it's overlapping. I'll extend the medium brown so there's less beige, but still enough to be able to give it that effect. So personal choice comes in, you know, it's up to you how much light you leave. I'm trying to work around the light source as well and what's overlapping. So as it moves around the body, it will get darker. So as I've moved around this strap around the body, I've tried to reduce the beige section, but try and keep a little bit in so you've still got that beveled effect. Give the, just like we did with the plait. Now I'll go back to this part of the basket, and I'm going to do the same effect, only I'm coming in from the sides. I'm coming in from the sides. To give it that effect. Same effect again, only going in a different direction. And the same on this side. Slightly more shadow because it'll be overlapping and moving away from the light, so I will extend the darker sections. Now we're back to this section that's like a lattice effect. I'm going to work on the longer sections first and working from the edges. Now I'll put a little bit of dark underneath there because it would be darker because that section is overlapping. Now there's these sections here, again going the other way, so I will just darken in the edges. And leave a highlight in the middle of each of those. Now I can adjust those as I go along, but I think you can see the effect of the highlight. Again, it looks beveled. Now I'm going to use my darkest brown and just be going onto the edges, just to darken those edges in. Not too much with this darkest brown for now, because I can adjust it if I feel I need to. So I'll be overlapping a little bit of the medium brown I've just put down. I'm just darkening in that edge for each of those sections. I won't do all of that on camera, but I think you can get the idea. Once you start darkening in the edges a bit more, again it emphasises that effect. Now there's a few more layers need to go down on this, which I will do, and then come back to this before I need to do a blend. I put 2 more layers down of each of those colours I was working on with the basket. I'm now going to do a light blend. Now with the darker sections, I'm going to extend the darker colours into the lighter just slightly using my blender pencil. So I'll be working from the darker edges and pushing the corners, you know, the colours towards the middle. And as it gets towards the lighter sections, I'll leave that lighter section there. I won't blend into it. So when it's lighter, I won't blend into the lighter section. And when it's darker, I will blend into a little bit more. So the light source is catching this part of the basket more, so I've left more highlight there, and here as well, here. But as it goes this way, I've blended more into the lighter sections, so there's less lighter sections because it's coming away from the light. But I don't want to cover all of it because I want to still keep that effect. Now I'm going to be doing this side. Now this will be darker than this section, say, so I want to keep some of my highlights but just blend in the darker colours into it a little bit. So I'll be extending that darker section so the highlight becomes smaller. As these bottom bits come up, I'm going to just lightly push the darker colour into the lighter colour. You'll still have a highlight, but it won't be as dark. I'm now going to use the lightest pencil to darken in a little bit those highlights. I'll be overlapping just a little bit into the medium brown, but not much. I'll take my darkest brown and I'll darken in some of the darkest edges. On the inside of the basket I did in the darkest brown. Well, that will need another blend, which I'll do off camera and then come back to this. Well, I did the final blend and I blended over the lighter sections again as I went down the bottom of this basket. So I managed to keep the lighter part of the basket at the top lighter, same with this part of the strand, and I went darker with my blending over the lighter sections on as it moved away from the light. So there is a gradient of light effect, and I like that, and I would think it worked quite well. So this is the end of this tutorial for doing a basket with berries. I hope viewers have found it useful and interesting. If you have any comments, please do leave them for me and I'll respond as soon as I can. And of course this is also the end of this project for me. I post all my projects up on my Facebook page, and I also have a page on Facebook which I'll put a link to, and I'll link to all my projects that I've finished. So this is the end of this tutorial. I'll say bye for now and see you in the near future.